I think when you look at Jewish media, let's step back. Let's look at Christian media. Um, they've managed somehow through Christian Broadcast Network and to bring together their best pieces. And I've spent a lot of time over the years with the Robertsons, with just a bunch of people in that world. And I find them to be, I find that their approach to media and the notion that, by the way, it's not just, this is what's really interesting, it's not just my media, but it's media that talks to the things that are important to me. So in other words, it's family values, so it's a show that's got nothing at all to do with religion, but it has a wholesomeness or a message that transcends my personal religious belief from an observance point of view, but maybe hits on the moral. They understand that all those things are in the same continuum, and I think that's brilliant. I think where we do well, I think that you need to have, like New York has different Jewish news than LA or Chicago, whatever, but I think there is a level of Jewish importance, of things that we all need to see. It's one of the reasons why is the New York Times a national or international newspaper? Why is Wall Street Journal international? Why is the FT international? Because they manage to they manage to cover a spectrum of things that are important to everybody. So I don't think we do that really well. I think we have JT. I think we have others. I think we have good news feeds, but you know, AP and Reuters and those guys just give you stories. They're not getting into the meat of the issues. They're not pulling it all together so that I can really the commentary, the issues. Newsweek is kind of doing that today. It's actually interesting in their new format. It's basically just lots of commentary they're kind of pulling together. To me, that would be hugely beneficial. I think also just from the point of view of broadcast, whether it's television, internet, it's all the same. I mean, at the end of the day, you're watching something on a screen. I don't think we've put enough money into it. I think, again, because we're so fragmented, we haven't really created great Jewish programming. There's some, it's okay, some is better than others. But again, I think because we've so fragmented it, and there's so many people, every couple of years somebody comes to me and says, hey, we got this is going to be the greatest Jewish, blah, 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 blah. And so it lasts, a year or two, and people put some money into it, and they make a couple of shows and a couple of programs, but it doesn't really go anyplace. It doesn't go far enough. So I think that we need more of that. And I think that we need to stop being so self-conscious about what we do. So many of our shows kind of look and sound the same. And, there used to be years ago when I was young, there was a show on Channel 4 in New York, Sunday mornings. I think it was called The Eternal Flame. It would be interesting to look up. But it was one of those shows every week, a different rabbi would be the moderator. I remember my dad was, I remember Rabbi Lookstein was, I remember all the people who were important in my life all had, and they would come with kids from their congregations or their schools, and they'd sit around and they would talk, and it would be kind of nice, but it was also probably one of the reasons I failed, because it was kind of boring, because it was, the rabbi saying, so, what did we do that, as opposed to kind of taking the, Regis and Kathy approach, which is much more popular, much more interesting, and much more available. So we tend not to go down that route enough, and I think we need to. I think we should. And I think there are way more people out there. Look, I'll give you a great example. There's JAM in the AM radio in New York, right? So it's really funny. So if politics aside, it has a particular bent, and it definitely has a particular skew, and it plays a particular type of Jewish music. But I happen to be addicted to that music. I love it, and I listen to Nachum whenever I can. And so when my daughter was first engaged a number of years ago, he announced it on the air. And all of a sudden, I'm getting calls from people in 1,000 years. I would have bet that they would not be listening to something like that. And I remember calling Nachum Sable, who was the host of the show, and saying, Nachum, it's like unbelievable. And he basically said, you know how many closet listeners we have? Just because people, they thirst, they want something. It's like you get that hour in the morning, you get to hear the Jewish, you hear the news from Israel at 7 o'clock, they bring it in on the internet. You hear Jewish music. You hear, even if it's a little hokey, that, Chani and Shmui got engaged. But like, you're listening to the radio while you're driving to work. Makes you smile. It connects you for that moment, you know. So I just thought we don't do that enough.